So I have a very unpopular opinion. 2020 wasn't that bad. And this may be me just desperately trying to find a silver lining in it. But then, like, what's wrong with that? If something bad happens and you're pessimistic about it, then something bad happened and then it sucks. But if something bad happens and you try to be optimistic about it, then maybe you can find some sort of good thing to come out of it. So I don't see any downside to trying to be an optimist, other than people that are being more pessimistic or wanting to trauma bond with you will kind of be upset that you're trying to be optimistic. And I have personally experienced this myself, where I was the one wanting to be upset about something and wanting to stay upset, and someone else was trying to be like, well, what about this? Maybe you can do this about it and have it turn out not too bad. And I was like, no, I want to be angry. I was like, no, it was terrible. I just let me be angry. And so obviously if 2020 was a bad year for you, then that is completely valid. And I'm not trying to downplay or dismiss any of that. A lot of people did have a bad year. Specifically anyone that got COVID, anyone that lost their jobs, even if just temporarily, anyone that got evicted because they weren't able to keep up with the bills. It's a lot of rough stuff going around. And if you had a bad year, then of course you had a bad year, and that sucks. And I hope that you can turn it around. And I hope that 2020 is better for you. And I hope that 2021 goes better for you. But I actually had a pretty great year, to be honest, and I just want to share about it because I think there's very few people that are willing to admit that for them 2020 wasn't really that bad, because they just want to indulge in being upset with everyone else, which is of course completely valid, and I do plenty of that as well. For me at least, I was working in retail, a pretty safe industry right now. I got way more hours than I used to because we had more people than ever ordering things online instead of coming into the store, and so we were hiring on a ton of new people to help fulfill those online orders, and I got to help out with that a little bit. And I also got a lot more hours than I would usually get because I had to keep the shelves full so that there would be items for them to ship out. I didn't get to see my friends and family that much, and that was kind of a bummer, but this was finally a good excuse to not see some of the people that I didn't really care to see. And also seeing certain people completely reject the idea that COVID exists at all, or maybe they think COVID exists but that the masks don't do anything, or they think that God loves them too much to let them get sick. All of which are obviously complete bullshit, and they're just little whiny, fact-ignoring babies who can't keep their mask on, the same way a toddler can't keep their pants on. And seeing certain people react that way, this has been like a final straw type of situation where I'm like, you know what? I just don't want those people in my life anymore. And I honestly feel great about it. I cut a lot of people out of my life this year, and I'm still not done, and it's fine. And I genuinely have never felt better about it. Obviously there's a little bit of loneliness, but that's like par for the course for this year, just because I'm not being around the people that I do still want in my life. This has also definitely been a pretty solid rock bottom for my mental health. Like, there have been countless times throughout my life where I was convinced, all right, this is it. It cannot possibly get any worse. This point, this year, I was like, yeah, no, this actually could not possibly get any worse for my mental health. My living situation and things like that definitely could be worse, and I'm very grateful that I have the situation that I do have. But as far as like my mind, I'm 100% convinced it could not possibly have gotten any lower. And so I started this channel. Like, that first video I posted, that wasn't just some sort of like edgy nonsense. That's 100% legitimate. So at the very least, this is like an experiment in brutal honesty, in being open and trying to fight the stigma around these things. But that tangent aside, another reason this year was great for me is all of this free time allowed me to just do a lot of contemplation about my life in general, and also a lot of cleaning and organizing. I have never been more organized than I am right now, and I'm still not done yet. I still have a little bit more to go. I also donated a ton of stuff that I just don't want or need or use anymore, things that other people can use and get value out of, instead of it just sitting in a garage somewhere. This year has also been a catalyst for me to start making some like big boy decisions, start doing some adulting, and kind of take life a little more seriously and like decide to recommit to life and actually give it a try, instead of just kind of scraping by and living life one day at a time, not really caring about the future. Because being suicidal, I never thought that I had a future, so I never bothered to plan for it. But now I'm actually trying to make some plans for the future. And while I will talk more about that on this channel eventually, I don't want to dive too far into that quite yet. This year has also really showed me that I need to be more proactive about my end of my friendships, that I need to contribute more, that I need to reach out more and keep in touch with people instead of just letting those connections fade out. I would summarize this year, for me at least, is that it just kind of shook me up a little bit to be like, hey, you gotta start actually living. You can't keep banking on the idea that you're gonna finally snap and kill yourself someday. You gotta like actually start living life and give it a real try. And this may just be me or my perception, but it seems like my generation and younger have gotten like a big wake-up call to start actually caring about one another, caring about the planet. We're going to be in charge soon. We can actually make changes in this world if we really try, if we really want to. And hopefully that's not just me being part of like a little echo chamber online, only seeing people that think similarly to me. I would like to hope that that's actually the majority of the younger people. They're kind of taking this realization much more seriously. I think for me at least, my entire life I kind of had this sense of like, well, life just is what it is and it sucks. But now I am attempting to embrace the idea that life can be whatever I want. I just gotta be willing to put in the work to get it, and I definitely am willing. Down with the stagnancy and in with the better. And so to wrap this up, I would say 2020 was not the start of the decade. The zero doesn't count. Next year, starting with the 1, the 2021, that's the start of the new decade. That's fine. Which actually holds a very eerie similarity to the previous decade. 2010 was the first time I ever had New Year's resolutions, and I was like all hyped up about them. And then life just kind of went back to normal, and it wasn't until late 2011 that I actually started making some changes in my life and started working towards those goals that I had set in 2010. But that didn't last very long, and I didn't achieve very many of those goals in the last decade. But anyways, Happy New Year, even though this is just an arbitrary point on the calendar. But anyways, Happy New Year, take care. Alright, on a day-to-debate date.